The rain was pouring down at Central Station when Marcus Thompson spotted the little girl sitting alone on the cold metal bench. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Her expensive designer coat soaked through, tears mixing with raindrops on her cheeks. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. What happened next would shake the foundations of everything Marcus thought he knew about judgment, second chances, and the power of a child's innocent words to change 2 lives forever. Marcus had been working the night shift at Central Station for 3 years now, mopping floors and emptying trash bins in the sprawling transit hub that connected downtown Chicago to the suburbs. Most people rushed past him without a second glance, just another invisible worker in their peripheral vision. He preferred it that way. The anonymity gave him space to think, space to plan, and, most importantly, space to hide from a past that felt like it belonged to someone else entirely. The evening of October 15th started like any other. Marcus clocked in at 6 p.m., grabbed his cleaning cart from the storage room, and began his methodical routine through the station's endless corridors. His supervisor, Janet Rodriguez, barely looked up from her crossword puzzle as he signed the duty roster. She'd learned to appreciate Marcus over the years. He never complained, never caused trouble, and somehow managed to keep the station spotless, despite the thousands of commuters who tracked mud, spilled coffee, and dropped garbage throughout each day. What Janet didn't know, what nobody at Central Station knew, was that Marcus Thompson had once been Dr. Marcus Thompson, one of the most promising child psychologists in the Midwest. His research on trauma recovery and young minds had been published in journals, his techniques taught in universities, his client list filled with the children of senators and celebrities who trusted him with their most precious possessions. But that was before the accident, before the lawsuit, before his world collapsed, and he'd chosen to disappear into the anonymous masses of working-class Chicago. The station buzzed with its usual evening energy as Marcus pushed his cart through the main terminal. Businessmen hurried past clutching briefcases and phone calls. Families dragged oversized suitcases toward departure gates, and teenagers clustered around charging stations with their devices. The familiar sounds of announcements echoing over loudspeakers, the rumble of trains arriving and departing, and the constant hum of conversation created a symphony that Marcus had grown to find oddly comforting. He was cleaning near Platform 7 when he first noticed her. A small figure huddled on one of the waiting benches, completely still while chaos swirled around her. Most people would have assumed she was waiting with family nearby, but Marcus's trained eye immediately recognized the subtle signs of distress. The way she held herself, the slight tremor in her shoulders, the fact that no adult had approached her in the 20 minutes he'd been observing the area. As he moved closer, pushing his cart with deliberate casualness, Marcus could see that the little girl was impeccably dressed. Her navy blue coat was clearly expensive, probably cashmere, and her small leather shoes looked like they cost more than Marcus made in a week. Her blonde hair was neatly braided, though now damp from the rain that had been falling steadily since afternoon. Everything about her appearance suggested privilege and care, which made her obvious distress even more concerning. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus that here he was, a man in janitor's coveralls, being the only person in this crowded station who seemed to notice that a child was in trouble. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Hundreds of people had walked past her, too absorbed in their own lives to register that something was wrong. It reminded him why he had been drawn to child psychology in the first place. This adult tendency to overlook the silent suffering of young people. Marcus glanced around the terminal, looking for any sign of frantic parents or security officers conducting a search. The regular evening crowd moved with purpose toward their destinations, but nobody seemed to be looking for a missing child. He checked his watch. 7:30 p.m. If this little girl had been sitting here since before his shift started, she'd been alone for over an hour. Fighting every instinct that told him to maintain his invisible status, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He parked his cleaning cart near the bench and approached slowly, his voice gentle as he spoke the first words that would begin to unravel both their carefully constructed new identities. Marcus approached the bench slowly, his worn sneakers making soft sounds against the polished station floor. The little girl looked up as he drew near, her blue eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope that made his chest tighten with familiar recognition. He had seen that exact expression countless times before, back when his days were spent in comfortable offices helping children navigate their deepest fears and traumas. "Hey there," Marcus said softly, crouching down to her eye level. "I'm Marcus. I work here at the station. Are you waiting for someone?" The girl nodded quickly, then shook her head, confusion clouding her features. "My daddy was supposed to pick me up, but he never came. I've been waiting forever." Her voice was small but clear, with the precise diction that came from expensive private schools and careful upbringing. Marcus felt the familiar surge of protective instinct that had driven his entire career. Every fiber of his being wanted to gather this child up and ensure her safety, but years of experience had taught him the importance of moving slowly, building trust before taking action. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emily," she whispered. "Emily Chen. I was at school, and they said my daddy was coming to get me. But then the teacher put me on the wrong bus, and now I'm here, and I don't know where I am." Tears began flowing down her cheeks as the words tumbled out in a rush. The name Chen rang a bell somewhere in the back of Marcus's mind, but he pushed the thought aside to focus on the immediate situation. "Okay, Emily. You're at Central Station in downtown Chicago. Do you remember your daddy's phone number? We can call him right now." Emily's face crumpled. "I tried to remember, but I was so scared and there are so many numbers and I couldn't think straight." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small pink phone. "This doesn't work anymore. The screen is all black." Marcus examined the device quickly. The screen was cracked, probably from being dropped, and it wouldn't power on despite his attempts. "That's okay. We'll figure this out together. Do you know where you live? Maybe your address?" "Somewhere with lots of trees," Emily said hopefully. "And we have a big gate with buttons. Daddy always presses the buttons to open it." Marcus suppressed a smile. Despite the gravity of the situation, the child's description could fit any of the wealthy suburban enclaves surrounding Chicago. Without more specific information, finding her home would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. He glanced around the station again, noting that it was now approaching 8 o'clock. The evening rush was beginning to thin out, but still, no frantic parents or security personnel searching for a missing child. "Emily, I want you to stay right here with me while I figure out how to help you, okay? I'm going to call my supervisor and see what we need to do to get you home safely." Marcus stood and reached for his radio, but before he could make the call, a commotion near the main information desk caught his attention. Two women in expensive business suits were speaking rapidly to the station security guard, their voices carrying across the terminal with barely contained panic. Marcus couldn't make out the words from this distance, but their body language screamed urgency. He had a sinking feeling he knew what this was about. "Emily," he said gently, "I think someone might be looking for you. Stay right here for just 1 minute, okay? Don't move from this bench." Marcus walked quickly toward the information desk, his janitor's uniform granting him the same invisibility it always did. The security guard, a middle-aged man named Peterson whom Marcus had exchanged pleasantries with over the years, was shaking his head at the two women. "Ma'am, I understand your concern, but we can't just shut down the entire station to look for one kid. Have you contacted the police? Filed a missing person report? We need to follow proper procedures here." The taller of the two women, a sharp-featured brunette in her 40s, was clearly struggling to maintain her composure. "Officer Peterson, you don't understand. This is Emily Chen. Her father is David Chen, the CEO of Chen Technologies. This child's disappearance could trigger a security nightmare. She's been missing for over 3 hours." Marcus felt his blood run cold. David Chen. He knew that name now. And not just from business news. Chen Technologies had been one of the companies involved in the lawsuit that had destroyed his career 5 years ago. David Chen had been the primary plaintiff, claiming that Marcus's treatment methods had somehow contributed to his older son's continued behavioral problems. The irony of the situation was almost too much to process. The woman continued speaking to Peterson, her voice growing more strained. "I'm Patricia Williams, Mr. Chen's executive assistant. This is Sarah Martinez from our legal department. Mr. Chen is currently in emergency board meetings in New York and can't be reached. Mrs. Chen is in Switzerland on business. Emily was supposed to be picked up from Lakewood Academy by her regular driver, but there was some miscommunication. The school put her on a city bus instead of waiting for pickup. Peterson was taking notes now, finally grasping the severity of the situation. What does the child look like? We can make an announcement over the PA system. 7 years old, blonde hair in braids, blue eyes, wearing a navy blue coat. She's probably scared and confused. Mr. Chen's reputation and the company's stock price could be seriously impacted if word of this gets out to the media before we resolve it quietly. Marcus found himself in an impossible position. He knew exactly where Emily was, could solve this entire crisis in 30 seconds. But approaching these women would mean revealing himself to representatives of the very company that had destroyed his professional life. David Chen had publicly accused him of being incompetent, had used his considerable influence to ensure that Marcus could never work in child psychology again. He thought about the settlement money that had been offered, money that could have supported him and his own daughter comfortably for years. Marcus had refused it, choosing instead to disappear rather than sign the non-disclosure agreement that would have silenced him forever. He believed then, and still believed now, that his treatment methods had been sound, that the failure with Chen's older son had been due to factors beyond anyone's control. But standing here now, watching Emily's father's employees desperately searching for her, Marcus realized that his wounded pride was far less important than a frightened child's welfare. Emily didn't know about the lawsuit, didn't know about the bad blood between her father and the man who had found her. She was just a scared little girl who needed help getting home. Marcus made his decision. He turned and walked back toward the bench where Emily sat waiting, her small figure looking even more fragile against the backdrop of the vast station. She looked up at him with those trusting blue eyes, and he felt his resolve strengthen. "Emily," he said, kneeling down beside her again, "I found some people who have been looking for you. They work with your daddy, and they're going to help us get you home." Emily's face lit up with relief and hope. "Really? They know my daddy?" "They do, but before we go talk to them, I need you to know something. Sometimes adults make mistakes, and sometimes they disagree about things that happened in the past. But that doesn't change the fact that you deserve to be safe and happy. Do you understand?" Emily nodded solemnly, though Marcus doubted she fully grasped the implications of what he was saying. He stood and extended his hand to her. "Come on, let's go get you home." As they walked across the station toward the information desk, Marcus felt the weight of the past 5 years pressing down on him. In a few moments, he would come face to face with representatives of the man who had accused him of professional negligence, who had used his wealth and influence to destroy Marcus's career and reputation. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was Emily, and getting her safely back to her family. The past had a way of catching up with people, Marcus reflected as they approached the group near the information desk. Sometimes it came back as an opportunity for revenge. Sometimes it came back as a chance for redemption. Today he was about to find out which one this would be. Marcus walked across the polished station floor, with Emily's small hand clasped firmly in his own. Each step brought him closer to a confrontation he had spent 5 years avoiding, yet he felt an odd sense of peace about the decision. Emily looked up at him with complete trust, her earlier tears dried but her grip still tight with lingering anxiety. "Excuse me," Marcus called out as they approached the group near the information desk. Patricia Williams and Sarah Martinez turned toward them, their expressions shifting from desperate hope to visible confusion as they took in Marcus's janitor uniform and weathered appearance. "I believe you're looking for this young lady," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the churning in his stomach. "Emily, these are the people I told you about who work with your daddy." Patricia Williams stared at Emily for a moment before dropping to her knees, relief flooding her features. "Emily! Oh my goodness, we've been searching everywhere for you. Are you hurt? Are you okay?" Emily nodded but stepped slightly behind Marcus, still overwhelmed by the situation. "The man helped me," she said quietly. "He was nice to me when I was scared." Sarah Martinez approached more cautiously, her legal training evident in the way she assessed the situation. "Sir, I'm Sarah Martinez from Chen Technologies' legal department. Where exactly did you find Emily? We need to understand what happened here." Marcus felt the familiar weight of suspicion that always seemed to follow him in professional settings these days. She was sitting alone on bench number 7 near platform B. She'd been there for over an hour when I noticed her. Her phone was broken, and she couldn't remember her father's contact information. Officer Peterson stepped forward, his radio crackling with incoming calls about other station business. "This gentleman works here," he told the women. "Marcus Thompson, one of our maintenance staff. Been here about 3 years, reliable guy." The name Thompson didn't seem to register with either woman, and Marcus felt a moment of gratitude for the anonymity his new identity provided. Patricia Williams was already on her phone, presumably calling Mr. Chen's office to report that Emily had been found safe. "We need to get Emily home immediately," Sarah Martinez said, her tone businesslike. "Mr. Chen will want a full report on exactly what happened and how the school managed to put her on the wrong transportation." Marcus watched Emily carefully throughout this exchange. The little girl was showing classic signs of stress response. The way she kept looking around for exits, how she stayed close to him despite not knowing him well, the slight tremor in her hands that the adults were too focused on logistics to notice. His professional instincts kicked in automatically. "Emily," Marcus said gently, crouching down to her level again. "How are you feeling right now? I know this has been a scary day for you." Emily looked at him with those wise blue eyes that reminded him of so many young patients from his past. "I'm still scared," she admitted. "What if they put me on the wrong bus again? What if my daddy is mad at me?" Sarah Martinez's phone rang before anyone could respond to Emily's concerns. She answered quickly, walking a few steps away for privacy, but her voice carried clearly across the space. "Yes, Mr. Chen, we found her. She's safe. A janitor at Central Station located her and kept her secure until we arrived." Marcus heard Sarah continue the conversation, explaining the situation to David Chen in clinical, businesslike terms. There was no mention of Emily's emotional state, no acknowledgement of how frightening this experience must have been for a 7-year-old child. The focus was entirely on logistics, liability, and damage control. Patricia Williams ended her own phone call and approached Emily with what was clearly meant to be a reassuring smile. "Emily, honey, we're going to take you home right now. Mr. Peterson here is going to escort us to our car, and we'll have you back in Winnetka before you know it." "But what about Marcus?" Emily asked, surprising everyone by reaching for his hand again. "He helped me when no one else did. Can he come too?" The question hung in the air awkwardly. Marcus could see the wheels turning in Sarah Martinez's mind as she calculated the legal implications of a stranger having extended contact with their CEO's daughter. Patricia Williams looked equally uncomfortable with the suggestion. "Sweetheart," Patricia said carefully, "Marcus has to stay here and do his job, but we're going to make sure your daddy knows how helpful he was." Emily's face fell, and Marcus recognized the expression immediately. It was the same look he'd seen on hundreds of young faces over the years. The moment when a child realizes that adults are going to make decisions about their life without considering their feelings or input. "Actually," Marcus said, surprising himself with his boldness, "I think Emily might benefit from talking about what happened today. This kind of experience can be pretty traumatic for a child her age." Sarah Martinez's head snapped toward him, her lawyer instincts clearly triggered. "I'm sorry, but who exactly are you to make that assessment?" "You're a maintenance worker, not a child psychologist." The irony of her statement was so sharp that Marcus almost laughed. Instead, he kept his voice level and professional. "You're absolutely right. I'm not qualified to make that assessment. I'm just suggesting that someone who is qualified should evaluate how Emily is processing this experience. The Chen family has access to the best child psychologists in the country," Patricia Williams said dismissively. "We don't need advice from—" She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Marcus had heard variations of this dismissal countless times over the past 5 years. People who judged his worth based on his uniform, his job title, his apparent social status. But something was happening that none of the adults had noticed. Emily was watching this exchange with growing distress. Her breathing had become shallow and rapid, her grip on Marcus's hand had tightened significantly, and she was displaying what Marcus immediately recognized as the early signs of a panic attack. "Emily," Marcus said urgently, ignoring the adults entirely and focusing solely on the child. "Look at me, sweetheart. I need you to breathe with me, okay? In through your nose, slow and steady." Emily's eyes locked onto his as she struggled to follow his breathing instructions. Marcus could see the fear building in her expression, the way her small body was beginning to shake with the overwhelming stress of the day finally catching up with her. "What's wrong with her?" Patricia Williams asked, her voice rising with new panic. "Is she having some kind of medical emergency?" "She's having a panic attack," Marcus said calmly, never taking his eyes off Emily. "It's not uncommon after a traumatic experience like being lost and separated from family. Emily, can you tell me 5 things you can see right here in the station?" Emily's breathing was still erratic, but she managed to whisper, "The big clock, the information desk, your cleaning cart, the lady's red purse, the train schedule board." "Perfect. Now 4 things you can hear. People talking, the announcement on the speaker, a train coming." My heart beating really fast. Sarah Martinez was already on her phone again, presumably calling for medical assistance, but Marcus continued his intervention. 3 things you can touch. Emily reached out tentatively. "Your hand, the metal bench, my coat buttons." "You're doing great, Emily." 2 things you can smell. "Coffee from that shop, and something that smells clean, like when they mop our floors at school." 1 thing you can taste. Emily paused, her breathing finally beginning to slow. "The gum I had after lunch." It was strawberry. The grounding technique had worked exactly as Marcus knew it would. Emily's panic was subsiding, her color returning to normal. But the damage to the adult's confidence was evident. Patricia Williams looked shaken, Sarah Martinez was barking medical terminology into her phone, and Officer Peterson was calling for emergency medical services. "How did you know how to do that?" Sarah Martinez demanded as she ended her call. That was exactly what she needed. Marcus looked down at Emily, who was now leaning against his side with exhaustion. The crisis had passed, but he knew this moment was about to change everything. The careful anonymity he'd built over 5 years was about to crumble, and there was no going back. "Sometimes," Marcus said quietly, "experience teaches you things that job titles can't." The emergency medical team arrived within minutes, their heavy boots echoing through the station as they rushed toward the group gathered near Platform 7. Marcus stepped back as the paramedics approached, but Emily's grip on his hand tightened, her eyes wide with fresh anxiety at the sight of more strangers in uniforms. "Please don't leave me," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible above the commotion. "I don't want to talk to more people I don't know." Sarah Martinez was already briefing the lead paramedic, a stocky man named Rodriguez who looked like he'd seen every possible emergency the city could throw at him. 7-year-old female, experienced a panic attack approximately 10 minutes ago. The episode has resolved, but we want her thoroughly checked before transport. Rodriguez knelt down beside Emily, his voice gentle but professional. "Hey there, sweetheart. I'm Tony, and I'm here to make sure you're feeling okay. Can you tell me how you're feeling right now?" Emily looked up at Marcus, seeking reassurance. He nodded encouragingly, and she turned back to the paramedic. "I feel tired, and my tummy hurts a little bit, but Marcus helped me feel better when I got really scared." "Marcus helped you?" Rodriguez looked around the group, his gaze settling on Marcus in his janitor uniform. "Are you the father?" "No," Patricia Williams interjected quickly. "He's maintenance staff here at the station. He found Emily when she was lost." Rodriguez began his standard medical assessment, checking Emily's pulse, blood pressure, and oxygen levels while asking basic questions about how she was feeling. Throughout the examination, Emily kept looking to Marcus for comfort, clearly having formed a strong attachment to the man who had helped her during her moment of greatest need. "Her vitals are completely normal now," Rodriguez announced after completing his assessment. "Heart rate is back to baseline, blood pressure is perfect for her age. Whatever technique was used to help her through the panic attack was very effective." Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the on-call child psychiatrist from Chicago General Hospital, arrived just as Rodriguez was finishing his examination. She was a tall woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a calm demeanor that immediately put Emily at ease. "Hello, Emily," Dr. Walsh said, settling onto the bench beside her. "I'm Dr. Walsh, and I talk to kids who have had scary experiences like the one you had today. Would it be okay if we chatted for a few minutes?" Emily nodded but kept hold of Marcus's hand. Dr. Walsh noticed the connection immediately and looked up at Marcus with professional curiosity. You're the gentleman who helped her through the panic attack? I just used a basic grounding technique, Marcus replied, his voice carefully neutral. 5 things she could see, 4 things she could hear, that sort of approach. Dr. Walsh's eyebrows rose slightly. That's a very sophisticated intervention for someone without medical training. Where did you learn that technique? The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Marcus could feel the weight of everyone's attention focused on him. Sarah Martinez was watching him with renewed suspicion, Patricia Williams looked confused, and Officer Peterson was clearly wondering why a janitor would know advanced psychological techniques. I've read some books about anxiety management, Marcus said carefully, trying to maintain his cover. When you work around people all day, you pick up things that might be helpful. Dr. Walsh wasn't buying it. Her years of experience had taught her to read people with remarkable accuracy, and something about Marcus's demeanor, his word choice, his calm competence in a crisis, was setting off her professional radar. Emily, Dr. Walsh said, turning her attention back to the child, can you tell me what happened when you started feeling scared? How did Marcus help you? Emily's face brightened as she described the experience. I was getting really scared because everyone was talking about me but not to me, and my heart was beating super fast and I couldn't breathe right. But Marcus got down like this, she demonstrated Dr. Walsh's current position, and he looked right at me and talked to me like I was important. He made me notice things around me, and it made the scary feelings go away. Dr. Walsh nodded thoughtfully. That sounds like exactly the right thing to do. Marcus, that grounding technique you used is part of a specific therapeutic protocol. It's not something most people would know instinctively. Marcus felt the walls closing in around his carefully constructed new identity. Like I said, I've done some reading. What books? Dr. Walsh pressed gently. I'd be interested to know what resources are available to the general public that teach that level of intervention. Sarah Martinez stepped forward, her legal instincts fully engaged now. Dr. Walsh, is there something we should be concerned about here? This man had unsupervised contact with Mr. Chen's daughter for over an hour. Actually, Dr. Walsh said, her voice taking on a more authoritative tone, I'm more concerned about why someone with obvious professional training in child psychology is working as a janitor and hiding their qualifications. The accusation hit Marcus like a physical blow. Emily looked up at him with confusion, not understanding the undercurrents of suspicion that were suddenly swirling around the man who had been her protector. Marcus, Emily said innocently, what's child psychology? Is that like being a doctor for kids' feelings? The simple question from the child broke something inside Marcus. He looked down at Emily's trusting face, then around at the circle of adults who were now viewing him with varying degrees of suspicion and curiosity. After 5 years of hiding, of suppressing his true identity, of pretending to be someone he wasn't, the weight of the deception had become unbearable. Yes, Emily, Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying a resignation that surprised everyone present. Child psychology is exactly like being a doctor for kids' feelings, and I used to be one of those doctors. The revelation sent shockwaves through the group. Patricia Williams took an instinctive step backward. Sarah Martinez immediately reached for her phone, and Officer Peterson's hand moved toward his radio. Only Dr. Walsh remained calm, her professional demeanor intact as she processed this new information. Used to be? Dr. Walsh asked carefully. Are you no longer licensed to practice? Marcus closed his eyes briefly, knowing that once he answered this question there would be no going back to his anonymous life. My license is inactive by choice, not due to any disciplinary action. I stopped practicing 5 years ago and chose to work in a different field. Sarah Martinez was already speed dialing her phone. Mr. Chen needs to know about this immediately. We have a man with an undisclosed background who had extended contact with Emily. Wait, Dr. Walsh said firmly, her voice cutting through the rising panic. Before anyone makes any calls, I need to understand what happened here. Marcus, why did you leave your practice? And why are you working under what appears to be an assumed identity? Marcus looked down at Emily, who was watching the adult drama unfold with the sharp intelligence that many children possess. She didn't understand all the words being used, but she clearly sensed that the man who had helped her was now in some kind of trouble. It's complicated, Marcus said finally. I had a case 5 years ago where the treatment didn't go as planned. The family was very prominent, very wealthy, and they had the resources to make sure that my career ended along with their son's treatment. Dr. Walsh leaned forward with professional interest. What kind of case? What family? Marcus felt the final pieces of his protective armor falling away. In the distance, he could hear Sarah Martinez speaking rapidly into her phone, reporting to someone that Emily had been found by a man with a suspicious background. The irony of the situation was almost overwhelming. The family was named Chen, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. David Chen was the father. His older son Michael had been struggling with behavioral issues after a traumatic incident. The treatment was going well, but then Michael had a setback during a particularly stressful time for the family. Mr. Chen blamed my methods and sued me for professional negligence. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah Martinez stopped talking mid-sentence, her phone still pressed to her ear. Patricia Williams's face went pale as she realized the implications. Officer Peterson looked confused, not understanding the significance of what had just been revealed. But it was Emily who broke the silence with the clarity that only children possess. "Marcus," she said, tugging on his hand to get his attention. "That's my brother Michael you're talking about, isn't it? He's been much better lately. Daddy said he found a new doctor who helped him learn to be happy again." The child's innocent words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Michael Chen had found help. He was doing better. The treatment failure that had destroyed Marcus's career and driven him into hiding had apparently been just a temporary setback in the boy's recovery. Dr. Walsh was staring at Marcus with recognition dawning in her eyes. "Marcus Thompson." "Wait, you're Dr. Marcus Thompson. I know your work. Your research on trauma recovery in children was groundbreaking. You disappeared from the field completely about 5 years ago. Everyone wondered what happened to you. The transformation was complete." In the space of a few minutes, Marcus had gone from invisible janitor to controversial figure to recognized expert. But as he looked down at Emily's trusting face, he realized that none of those labels mattered as much as the simple fact that he had been able to help a frightened child when she needed it most. Sarah Martinez ended her phone call and approached the group with a mixture of shock and uncertainty written across her face. "Mr. Chen wants to speak with you directly, Dr. Thompson," she said, her voice significantly more respectful than it had been moments earlier. "He's flying back from New York immediately." Marcus felt his stomach tighten at the prospect of facing David Chen after 5 years of silence. The man who had once accused him of professional incompetence, who had used his wealth and influence to destroy Marcus's reputation, was now rushing back to Chicago because his daughter had been found safe by the very person he had driven from the profession. Dr. Walsh was studying Marcus with renewed professional interest. "Dr. Thompson, I have to ask. Your techniques with Emily were flawless. Your understanding of child trauma response was textbook perfect. Why aren't you practicing anymore? The field lost a valuable asset when you disappeared." Marcus looked down at Emily, who was listening to every word with the intense focus that bright children often displayed when adults were discussing things that affected them. "Sometimes the cost of being right isn't worth the fight," he said quietly. "I chose to start over, rather than spend years in court battles defending my methods." Patricia Williams stepped forward, her earlier dismissive attitude completely transformed. "Dr. Thompson, I owe you a sincere apology. I made assumptions based on your appearance and employment, and I was completely wrong. Mr. Chen is going to want to thank you personally for taking care of Emily." "He doesn't need to thank me," Marcus replied. "I did what anyone should do when they see a child in distress. Emily's safety was the only thing that mattered." Emily tugged on Marcus's sleeve to get his attention. "Marcus, are you really a doctor like Dr. Walsh? Is that why you knew how to help me when I got scared?" Marcus knelt down to Emily's eye level one more time, his voice gentle as he explained. "I used to help children who had experienced scary or confusing things, just like what happened to you today. I would teach them ways to feel better and stronger." "Like you did with my brother Michael?" Emily asked with the directness that only children possess. The question hung in the air like a bridge between past and present. Marcus nodded slowly. "I tried to help Michael, yes. But sometimes helping takes longer than parents want to wait, and sometimes people disagree about the best way to help." Dr. Walsh interrupted gently. "Dr. Thompson, I don't know the details of what happened 5 years ago, but I can tell you that your intervention today was masterful. Emily's panic attack could have escalated into something much more serious without proper intervention." Officer Peterson's radio crackled with an incoming message. He listened briefly, then approached the group. Mr. Chen's private car just arrived at the station. He'll be here in about 2 minutes. Marcus felt his heart rate increase as the moment of confrontation approached. 5 years of carefully constructed anonymity were about to collide with the man who had been responsible for destroying his professional life. But as he looked at Emily's trusting face, he realized that his perspective on the entire situation had shifted. The lawsuit, the accusations, the destroyed career, none of it seemed as important now as the simple fact that he had been able to help a frightened child. David Chen had been a worried father 5 years ago, desperate to help his troubled son, and looking for someone to blame when progress seemed too slow. Marcus could understand that desperation now in a way he hadn't been able to back then. Emily suddenly straightened up, her face lighting with excitement. "Daddy!" she called out, breaking free from the group and running toward a tall, well-dressed Asian man who was hurrying across the station floor with obvious urgency. David Chen swept his daughter into his arms, holding her tightly as relief flooded his features. He was older than Marcus remembered, his hair showing streaks of gray that hadn't been there 5 years ago, but his love for his daughter was unmistakable. "Emily, sweetheart, are you okay? I was so worried when I got the call. Are you hurt?" Chen's voice was thick with emotion as he examined his daughter for any signs of harm. "I'm okay, Daddy. I was really scared, but Marcus helped me. He knew exactly what to do when I couldn't breathe. Right, and he stayed with me the whole time so I wouldn't be alone." Chen looked up from his daughter toward the group of adults, his gaze settling on Marcus with obvious confusion. Recognition flickered across his features, followed by a complex mixture of emotions that Marcus couldn't quite read. "Marcus Thompson," Chen said quietly, his voice carefully controlled. "I never expected to see you again." Marcus stood up slowly, meeting Chen's gaze directly. "Mr. Chen, I'm glad Emily is safe. She's a remarkable little girl." The two men faced each other across 5 years of legal battles and professional destruction. But between them stood Emily, unaware of the history but clearly bonded to the man who had protected her during her moment of greatest need. "Daddy," Emily said, breaking the tension with childhood innocence. "Marcus used to be a doctor for kids' feelings, just like the doctor who helps Michael. Isn't that cool? He knew exactly how to make me feel better when I got really scared." Chen's expression softened as he processed his daughter's words. "Is that right, Emily? Marcus helped you feel better?" "He did, Daddy. All the other grown-ups were talking about me, but Marcus talked to me. He made me count things I could see and hear, and it made the scary feelings go away. Can we thank him properly?" Dr. Walsh stepped forward, sensing an opportunity for professional closure. "Mr. Chen, I'm Dr. Walsh from Chicago General. I wanted you to know that Dr. Thompson's intervention today was exceptional. Emily could have suffered significant psychological trauma from this experience, but his immediate and appropriate response prevented that outcome." Chen looked from Dr. Walsh back to Marcus, his business-trained mind clearly processing this new information. "Dr. Thompson, I think we need to talk privately." Marcus shook his head gently. "Mr. Chen, there's nothing that needs to be said. I'm just glad Emily is safe and back with her family. That's all that matters." "But there is something that needs to be said," Chen insisted. 5 years ago, I was a desperate father who made accusations based on fear rather than facts. Michael's new therapist helped me understand that recovery isn't always linear, that setbacks don't indicate failed treatment. I owe you an apology, and apparently I owe you a debt of gratitude for taking care of Emily today." Marcus felt a weight lifting from his shoulders that he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. "Michael is doing well?" Chen's face brightened with genuine pride. "He's thriving, graduating top of his class, planning to study psychology in college. He wants to help other kids the way his doctors helped him." Emily looked up at her father with curiosity. "Daddy, does this mean Marcus can come have dinner with us? I want to show him my art projects." Chen smiled at his daughter's directness, then looked back at Marcus. "Dr. Thompson, I know I have no right to ask anything of you after what happened between us, but I'd like to offer you something. Chen Technologies has been developing a foundation focused on children's mental health services. We need someone with your expertise to head the program." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering the offer that would restore everything he had lost 5 years ago. Professional recognition, financial security, the chance to help children again on a large scale. But as he looked around the station at his cleaning cart still sitting near bench 7, at the familiar surroundings where he had found peace and anonymity, he realized something important. "Mr. Chen, I appreciate the offer more than you know, but I've learned something important over the past 5 years. Helping children doesn't require a title or an office or recognition. It just requires being present when they need someone to care." Chen looked surprised by the response. "So you're turning down the position?" Marcus smiled, the first completely genuine smile he'd felt in years. "I'm saying that I've found my place. But if you ever need consultation on your foundation's programs, or if Emily ever needs someone to talk to about feelings, you know where to find me." Emily hugged Marcus tightly around the waist. "Thank you for helping me today. You're the best feelings doctor ever." As the Chen family prepared to leave the station, Marcus returned to his cleaning cart and resumed his work. But something fundamental had changed. He was no longer hiding from his past or running from his identity. He was exactly where he chose to be, doing work that mattered, ready to help the next person who needed it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.